I know you love ribeye. I do too. But there are a couple of problems with ribeye, and these problems are becoming bigger and bigger. This is one of the biggest problems. This thing. This, look at this. I'm not talking about the sticker. And of course, the more obvious problem of the ribeye steak is the price. But don't worry. We'll take a look at 3 great alternatives that are more affordable and give you less waste. Let's open up this package and take a closer look at that ribeye steak. The first thing that I notice is the size of this thing. Now, of course, the size of the cow determines the size of the ribeye. However, look at the thickness when I put my finger next to it. It's almost less than 1 finger thick. Of course, if you buy in a restaurant store or you buy at the butcher's, you always pay the price per kilogram. And that is awesome because then you're never talking about shrinkflation. But if you have these pre-packed steaks with a big price tag on them and they seem like a good deal, but really the price is even higher than what you paid before. And that kind of makes me sad because I like a good deal. Now let's cover another part of the problem with the ribeye, and this is maybe one that's less obvious. But all we need to do to discover it is take a look at it. You see on top of the steak there's the rib cap, which is one of the most amazing things on a steak ever. It's got great intermuscular fat and it has lots and lots of flavor. Of course you have the eye, which is also a really tender and tasty cut of meat. But the other parts of this steak are the fat that runs in between and the silver skin or tendon that comes with it. Personally, I don't mind it. I just eat it. I'm like my dog. I just put it in my mouth. I chew it a couple of times, enjoy it, and then swallow. But I don't think I'm regular people because I see a lot of people cutting off the fat and then just sliding it on the side of their plate like they don't have to eat it. It kind of hurts. I think you should be eating it. But if you don't, you're wasting money. Of course, to each his own. You don't have to eat it. I cannot force you to eat it. But if you're not eating it, then why pay for it? Why not choose another steak that doesn't have this? But the last thing that we're going to talk about is the most obvious thing and the most hurtful, painful, this terrible thing about the whole situation with ribeyes, and that's the price. I'm going to get my phone in because I'm going to give you the official price numbers. And it's bad. Here it comes. USA ribeye prices since 2020 rose by 60%. Holy moly. 60% higher in price on your ribeye. I'm so glad I don't live in the USA at the moment. Imagine paying 60% more. I don't think any Dutch guy will ever survive that rise in prices. Canada, since 2025, 13.5% higher on the ribeye. And I can keep going on because in Germany, the Netherlands, UK, it's kind of the same thing. We went up 20-30% over the last 2 to 3 years. And personally, I can't wrap my mind around it because I don't think there's 20 to 30% more people demanding more meat. So what happened? Somebody's getting rich here. I'm sure of it. So the price is kind of the main issue that we need to figure out how to kind of like steer away from going with it and accepting the highest prices for the highest cut. So I did some research, and together with my lifetime experience of grilling steaks and buying them obviously, I came up with a couple of alternatives. A little longer. So if we set it aside, then what are we looking for? I'm looking for something that's reasonably tender. Number 2 on my wish list is it has to have at least as much flavor as the ribeye. And number 3, it cannot have any waste. Well, at least it's better if it doesn't have any waste. And you know what I would really love to have? You know what that is? A lower price. Whew. Sorry about that. But I feel really strongly about that and I want to bring the point across. This might be the most obvious one. If you're thinking, hold on, isn't that the same steak that you use to replace the brisket with? That's the one. That is exactly what this is. It is so good, you can actually replace the ribeye steak with a chuck steak. There is a big but. You want to get the right one. You want to get the chuck steak that is at the end of the chuck roast and that sits very close to the ribeye. That chuck steak, that is the one you want. I know that's very specific, but if you get it right, then you're going to have an amazing steak. And as a matter of fact, the only steak you should be calling chuck steak is that steak. The rest should just be called a chuck roast. The good thing about the chuck steak is that it's extremely tasty. There is no better flavor profile than a chuck steak. The next thing I love about the chuck steak is that it's marbled. It has a little bit of intramuscular fat, and that makes it taste really good. Now the third thing is that you don't have too much waste on this steak. There's a little bit of fat there in between, but that's nothing compared to the ribeye. And the main thing, the price is really good. Of course, I'm gonna season my chuck steak and stick in a wireless thermometer to keep my eye on the temperature. But I have to be honest, the reason why it's not more popular is because it's not as tender as the ribeye. And people seem to care about the tenderness. So, yeah. Now let's take a look at number 2 of my list of what could potentially replace a ribeye. This is flap meat, also known as Bavette, and I think it potentially replaces ribeye. What a beauty! Even though it's number 2 on my list, it is amazing. It is really, really good. But first, let's talk about the strong points. It's packed full with flavor, and you can tell by the redness of the steak. It has a lot of hemoglobin, and it means it's very powerful. So it's kind of a working muscle, and with a working muscle comes a lot of flavor, but there also is a lot of strength in this meat, which is not necessarily a good thing. But I can show it to you very easily. You see, these are long fibers that run in that direction. You can see them everywhere on the steak, and you can pull on it as hard as you want, but you won't be able to pull it apart. The only way to get this apart is with a sharp knife. But if you use the right cutting technique, this is the best working muscle steak you ever tasted. But there's another big bonus about this steak, and that is that it doesn't have any waste. Look at it. It's all red meat with intramuscular fat without any fat or tendons running through it. It's just one piece of muscle. It's not a combined muscle or stringy thingies or whatever. It is just one piece of meat. Now let's talk about that downside because you're not gonna like it. This steak is getting more expensive by the day because of its popularity. And if where you live this steak is not popular, you're blessed. Very, very blessed. I'm gonna season the steak with a little bit of PitmasterX Texas seasoning, of course on both sides. And I'm gonna sear this steak over direct heat. Because this steak is thinner than the other steaks, it doesn't need much indirect heat. It just needs a little bit of time over the direct zone, slowly grilling it and focus on that crust, on the Maillard effect on the outside of the meat. So that is the good part about this steak. It's a working steak. It needs a little bit of tough love. Number 3 on the list is probably going to be the one. Can you tell what it is? Out of all 3 of these steaks, this steak probably has the most flavor. But there's one thing more important about this steak that it has above all the other ones, even above the ribeye steak. This is, in my personal opinion, the better steak. Better. Lots and lots better. If you know this steak, man, you are screaming it through the screen. If you have a keyboard by hand, you're like, I knew it, because I like that one too. That is it. This is that one. But oh boy, the downside of this steak, it is so ugly. Let's just be honest. If you put this on my plate in a restaurant, I will be looking at the waiter and go like, I think you messed this up. I didn't order scraps. I ordered steak. I think we just have to get used to what it looks like because this is so good. And the price. Hey, I know there are places where they outprice this out of anything and it doesn't make any sense, but the price of this steak in most countries, in most regions of countries, is very, very, very affordable. As a matter of fact, butchers used to take this steak home as the butcher steak, aka the hanger steak. They would take this home as like a scrap that they could feed their family with. And oh boy, they got it right. All steaks are grilled, rested to a temperature of 54 degrees Celsius core. Now without further ado, let's slice into these steaks and take a look on the inside. Oh boy. All of these steaks have one thing in common. They all have a coarser structure, but the chuck has the finest structure inside the steak. And the finer structure means it's more tender than the Bavette and more tender than the hanger steak. But there is a trick you can apply to make them appear evenly tender. For the chuck, that trick is going to be a little bit difficult. But if I take my Bavette and we take a look at it, we see the grains running in one direction. I'm not talking about the bend here, I'm talking about the steak. And all you need to do is take a knife and cut it against the grain in thin slices. And it's actually so tender that you can pull this apart with your hands easily. The same goes for the hanger steak. If you take the hanger steak, cut it against the grain. Oh, this is fantastic. I wish you could just feel it. Then the way I feel it with my knife. This is such an amazing steak. All right, I'm getting ahead of myself. We should do these one by one. Let's start with a chuck steak. The first thing that I want to talk about is the waist. Just like with the ribeye, we got a little bit of fat here. If you don't like fat and you're going to throw it away, don't buy the chuck steak. Now for the flavor. Let's do a taste test on the Bavette. A lot more structure. And that is the hanger steak. Whereas the chuck steak is very forgiving. If you cut it wrong, it's probably not going to be super chewy. But if you cut the flap meat the wrong way, it's not going to be forgiving. It's going to be very chewy. So you got to cut it right. But flavor-wise, it's on par with the chuck steak. Now the sad thing actually is that the Bavette is currently getting more and more expensive. Even more expensive than the chuck steak. And even going up to the prices of the ribeye steak. So it still makes sense as a replacement, but it's not a lot cheaper. Now for my favorite steak, the hanger steak, the price is on point. And if you look at the steak, it's super dark red and it's a lot more tender than the flap meat. I'd love to hear which of these steaks is your favorite. If you have any suggestions on which other steaks would be options, then I'd love to hear about those too. And if you enjoyed this video, then give it a big thumbs up and a comment down below. See you guys in the next video. Until then, eet smakelijk and keep on grilling.